Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. If you are trying to evaluate whether real estate is the right career for you, wondering whether you are doing the right things to launch into quick success, or looking for tips and tools you can use today to become a more productive agent, this is your podcast. Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. This is Season 3, Finding Inspiration. And this is episode 11. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Meredith Fogel, along with my co-host, Erica Day.
Hi.
So glad you joined us today. Our episode today is actually going to be some content that we're sharing with you that I recently debuted at Side by Side, which is what I call our umbrella brokerage's giant event that they hold in California. So in front of thousands of people, I got to present my content, most of which is taken from my book, Farming for Real Estate Agents, which I know a lot of you have read. Thank you if you've read it. So if you are a geofarmer or you are thinking about geofarming, or maybe you've tried geofarming and you feel like it's not really working for you, I'm hoping that this will give you some of the tips and direction you need to make geofarming a viable strategy for lead generation for you. And Erica is here to keep me honest and to ask me clarifying questions and anything you're curious about, Erica, shoot as we go through this. Now, I'm going to mention there's a workbook that goes with my book, Farming for Real Estate Agents, that you get for free when you order the book. But if you are listening to this and you want the workbook to follow along with some of the things I'm going to take you through today, reach out to me. You can connect with me on social media or through my website, meredithfogel.com, and I'm happy to shoot you a copy of the workbook. All right, let's get started. So what we're going to talk about today is 1, what a geofarm is, 2, why geofarming is a strategy for success and career longevity, how to begin geofarming if you haven't started to kind of like dive into it yet, how to grow and protect your market share as a geofarmer, the top 3 things that successful geofarmers are doing now. So this is a little bit of like updated bonus content even from the book, effective farming systems, and how to approach expanding your geofarm if you are successful and want to take on a new farm area, or it's something you just want to consider in your future. So first, I usually like to canvas who we have in our audience. And since I have one person live in my audience today, and you guys at home can answer as you're listening too, Erica, I'll ask you, do you consider yourself a geofarmer?
Yes.
Okay, good. And let me ask you what you do to geofarm. 1, do you send postcards regularly to your farm?
Yes.
Okay. Do you regularly advertise in any other print medium within your geofarm?
I don't.
Okay. Do you post to social media regularly about your geofarm?
Yes.
Okay. Do you sponsor or hold regular events in your geofarm?
I've done one event.
Okay. Do you volunteer within your geofarm?
A little bit, yes.
Do you know the names of every builder and every model in your geofarm?
I couldn't rattle them off the top of my head.
Okay. So if you have more than 25% market share in your geofarm and you are listening, my guess is that you have answered yes to all of those questions. If you are still trying to gain traction in your geofarm, my suggestion is to add some of these pieces. Feel free to rewind and go back through if you need to figure out what you might need to plug in so that you really are gaining market share within your geofarm and positioning yourself as an expert within your area of choice. Now I'm going to go over some frequently asked geofarming questions that I get from people all the time. 1, what is a geofarm? I'm always surprised when I talk to agents who have been in the business for a while and they're like, what's a geofarm? Sometimes people know the term farm, but not geofarm. Would you know if somebody was like, said geofarm when you first started in the business?
No way.
You wouldn't. Okay, so it's a reasonable question. So I'll define it for everybody here. A geofarm is a limited geographic area in which you focus your marketing and lead generation efforts in an attempt to gain and grow market share. That, in a nutshell, is what a geofarm is. Another question I get all the time is, how big does a geofarm have to be? And I think this comes from some real estate coaches or mentors kind of advocating that you've got to have a minimum. And for some reason, I always hear the number 1,500. Have to have a minimum of 1,500 homes to consider yourself a real geofarmer. So 1,500 homes that you are regularly mailing and advertising to. I disagree. Okay. And I will tell you why. because I've done it and I've tried it and I know that this is true, that as long as you are consistent in going deep and hitting all of these pieces that we just went over within your geofarm, you can start with a couple hundred homes and you can limit your financial exposure that way. And as long as you make the consistent commitment to reinvest in your geofarm once you get a piece of business within that farm and to expand it, you're just fine. So you don't have to go huge and wide at first. You really need to be consistent and deep. That's going to give you better traction and better results. And then again, make sure you don't go blow all that money in Vegas. You've got to reinvest it into the next 100 or 200 homes that you want to add to your farm. Why geofarm? Oh, hold on. I got more FAQs. I missed a couple. Okay. One is, how many times do I need to mail in my geofarm before you see results? Erica, what would you think the answer to that is?
8.
8. Yes, that is usually it. I will say it depends on what else you're doing also, because you could mail 80 times. And if you're not doing any of these other things, you're not going to see results. You're really lucky if you've seen results and you mailed a few times and gotten one piece of business. And if you've mailed a whole ton of times and gotten a piece of business, you're still really lucky. Mailing alone is not enough to geofarm. If you are mailing and volunteering and sponsoring and posting via social media, and you know the names of every builder and you're being a resource for people, then you probably will see results after just a few mailings. But along with everything else, you've got to kind of layer everything on. Another question I often get is, can I farm in an area in which I do not live? What are your thoughts on that, Erica?
You can, but it's harder.
It's harder, exactly. And that would be my answer exactly. Because you're naturally more aligned and your message is going to resonate with people who live in the farm area that you're trying to farm. It's just easier, naturally. And you're there, like you're seeing the people. So if you don't live in the area, you've got to have a compelling message, and you should get yourself into the neighborhood as much as you can, either by sponsoring events or even walk around the neighborhood, visit things that they're doing there. If you have a friend there, go hang out with them, walk a dog with them, whatever, so that you can get in front of the people who live in the neighborhood. And the other big question I get is, well, what if there's already a dominant farmer in that neighborhood? If there's a dominant farmer in that neighborhood, you are in business, because you know that not everybody loves that single dominant agent. There's always room for somebody to come in and differentiate themselves. Now, if there's more than one, that's another question. We're going to talk about what that means in a few minutes. Any other questions you can think of that you hear a lot about geofarms, or that's at the top of your mind burning?
I guess how to get to know the people, other than making yourself present in the neighborhood.
Okay, that's part of what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So love that you asked. Okay, cool. So before we get to that, we're going to talk about why geofarm. And there are lots of agents who say, I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one place. I don't want to just be within this very small audience. Why should I do that? I want to be able to go everywhere. Well, you can, sure. You can also geofarm as one of your lead generation pillars and still serve a wider constituency. That's perfectly fine. I find that the reason to really geofarm is not only that you, again, are naturally in tune with and in flow with the people within your target audience, but it kind of gives you a built-in expertise just by choosing to focus in that area. Now, we know that in a shifting market, the number one factor consumers have used and named over and over again as the reason they choose an agent is local expertise. Mm-hmm. That's the top thing. If somebody's looking to move into a community, they go on and they search agents in, real estate in, right? They're always using that geo-specific tag. And if you're the person that comes up, you're way more likely to get that piece of business. We saw this when the Zillows of the world came onto the scene. There was this consumer flight to expertise. People realized that the market was getting watered down. And even though they were sometimes finding a house through one of those online portals, the person that they ultimately selected to represent their interest was the local expert. We also know that the lower the inventory, the more the local expert becomes the gatekeeper for these clients. So no longer are the Zillows of the world able to give the same kind of exposure to these clients that were coming to them before. Now these buyers are coming to us directly. I have it happen almost every day. Someone coming to me and saying, I know you sell the most in the Kentlands and Lakelands. What do you have coming on, whether it's an agent or a buyer? So we really are becoming the keeper of that information again. Done correctly, farming really does protect your market share and your productivity in any market, because The local expert is always in demand and has to do less to create attraction from their clientele. Geofarming also brands you as that locally famous agent who can become the king or queen of your market really easily. So it's kind of easy to become that big fish in the little pond when you are a geofarmer. And it opens up opportunities to receive more referral business. And what I mean by that is when an agent from another part of the country or the world is working with somebody who has identified a particular area they want to live in, that agent looks specifically like a buyer would for the agent who knows that area better than anybody. I can't tell you how many referrals I've gotten from people from across the world who are like, they want to be in your neighborhood. I know you sell everything there. I know you're the person who's going to be able to find them their house. I just want a referral fee from you. 100% all day long, I'll take that piece of business. And if you do it right, a geofarm can be a sellable asset for you at the end of your career. Not something we're going to get into today, but it is covered in the book. Geofarming works because it gives you that instant connection, creates resonance with that audience. It gives you saturation of a focused area, again, making you kind of that big fish in the small pond. And it creates instant differentiation. So within a sea of real estate agents doing the same thing, doing different things, it differentiates you as someone who people look to as a resource that they need. I feel like it makes your marketing more focused and easier too. Don't you think when you're posting about a specific area, you know what to do, right? You're not like floundering around for, what do I post? What do I post? Mm-hmm. What kind of content do you see that you like when people post on, or what are you posting that's effective about farm areas?
What's selling in the area, what kind of, and just the numbers, when we put out numbers for the state of Maryland, and this is days on market and that kind of thing, it feels marginally relevant. Right? Mm-hmm. But when you drill down, okay, now we've got county, let's just say Montgomery County numbers. That feels a little more relevant. But when you can really go into the neighborhood and say, this is how many houses are selling, this is the average price, this is how long they're staying on the market, this is how many offers we're getting, it really means something the more localized it is.
Yeah. This reminds me of, we were just watching during our team meeting earlier, Jason Pantana, shout out to Jason, with the Tom Ferry Network, did a video on 7 tips to help you get better on video. And this particular one was about creating engagement from your audience and doing like a call out specifically to your audience. So if you start with a hook in your video or some kind of messaging you're putting out there, even if it's a social media post, I think that's like, hey, Kentland's neighbors, or hey, Lakeland's residents, all of a sudden your ears perk up in a way. And he was saying it's like hearing your name mentioned when you're at a restaurant, like you automatically turn around because you're like, oh, maybe the person's talking to me, and you're going to hear it in a different way. So I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, even things non-really real estate related, like this new restaurant is opening over here, just the news of the neighborhood.
Yes.
Our neighborhood happens to have a lot of that. Right?
A lot of new restaurants.
A lot of
coming in and out. All the time.
Just things being built and changing hands. So there's a lot of news about that, and it's interesting. Everyone wants to know what's happening.
Yeah, and I think if you were to say something like, "Hey, Kentland's and Lakeland's residents, did you hear about this new restaurant that's opening? Have you tried it yet? Comment down below. Tell me before I go. I want to know. Do you recommend it? Should I go there?"
Right.
And then you're creating engagement again within this very focused audience. And his point too. It's a narrower focus, but it's a focus with the audience that you're really trying to reach rather than doing the scattershot attempt and reaching kind of nobody. The other really nice thing about being a geofarmer is that every time you market a farm area listing or sale, you're also marketing yourself in a way that feels relevant to your audience because they're connecting you back to themselves as a resident of that community. All right, let's talk about how to begin geofarming. And I think this is where people sometimes get stuck, or they start and they just stop way too early because, again, it is an investment of your time, energy, and money. Because of that, choosing your geofarm is probably the most critical thing that you can do. And I provide a formula for choosing your farm in Farming for Real Estate Agents and in the workbook as well. I'm going to give you the broad strokes today, but again, in the book and workbook, there are like actual exercises that you fill in to help you identify your geofarm. Step 1 is to choose with your heart. You have to make sure that the area you're choosing is one that you have a real interest in and passion for, and that you like the people in too, right? Because you want to make sure that you resonate with this audience and that when you get called in to work with one of them, They're going to be people that you want to actually spend time with and work with. You want to also know that you like the houses. And I think you need to ask yourself, would you live there and why? If you wouldn't live in your geofarm, it's probably not a farm that you should be concentrating in. Also, because when you go on listing appointments, people will say, well, what do you like about the neighborhood? What is it that you think is most compelling? And sometimes to test you, sometimes just to see what your plan is for marketing, sometimes just because they want to make sure you have the knowledge that, and the passion for it that they have. So you need to be able to articulate that. Second, ask yourself, can you see yourself investing time and money long-term into this geofarm? A geofarm is like a little business plan in and of itself, and it takes a good 8 to 12 months to see return on it. So if you're going to throw money at it for a few months, you are throwing money away. You might as well spend that time, effort, and money on a whole different lead generation effort. But if you've decided that geofarming is right for you and you can figure out a place that feels like you love this area, you live there or could live there, if you could make it happen for yourself, you want to live there, or maybe it's somewhere you've lived before, so you have a lot of knowledge about it. It could be a place that you grew up or a place that, you had a house previous. The second piece is to choose with your head. So first, you need to run the numbers to be sure the geofarm area can support your income goals. And you will see in the workbook, there is a whole exercise you go through to do this using your MLS. And you want to make sure that the number of transactions within the geofarm can support your goals. So if you're in a geofarm where only 5 houses sell in a year, does that give you enough income? Maybe if they're $5 million houses, maybe it makes sense to dig into that geofarm. But for most of us in a normal price range area, 5 transactions is not going to be enough. So you need to make sure that enough transactions happen that if you get a certain amount of market share, it's going to reach your income goals. The next thing you need to do is vet the competition. So make sure, back to the point about whether there are more than one already successful, focused, market dominant agents there. If there are 2, you need to look at the trends and see, is one gaining? Is one diminishing? How does it look? Is there room for somebody else to come in? Because there are 2 pretty significant head-to-head geofarmers already in a market. It's going to be hard to break into that market. Anything to add about that?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. Now let's talk about how to gain and protect market share. So this is going to answer your question, Erica, about how you get in front of those people that you want to be in your farm area audience. So first of all, you want to make sure that you are keeping in front of them with a compelling marketing message, making sure that you know your audience and the problem that you can help them solve. So identify what it is that your audience likes to do, who they are. Hopefully you know where they live already if you've identified their geofarm. What do they do with their free time? What do they do for a living? All of those things. Know this about your audience because that's going to help you craft your marketing message. And then you want to know, again, what is that problem? So for example, here in our area, one of the quote unquote problems people have is they need to figure out a way to make a house to house move within the geofarm. People move within houses into different houses in this geofarm all the time. It's like the hermit crab shedding its shell. They come into the market in a starter home, and then the family starts to grow and they need a bigger home, but they love the neighborhood. They don't want to leave, but now they have to figure out, how do we, like the hermit crab, find the new shell and not wither and die in between trading shells? So that's where we jump in and help them figure out how they can make that transition from the existing house to what we call the forever home, or from that forever home into a downsize when they're ready to do that one day, still never leaving the neighborhood and not making it something that's going to create upheaval in their whole lives. That's what we specialize in. So figure out what your target market's issue is and your audience's issue is and how you help them solve it. Second, create a differentiator you can easily communicate. You know how people want to move within the neighborhood, for example? I say I help them make that happen seamlessly, often finding them a new house before it goes on the open market and then finding the perfect buyer for their house. So that's the differentiator. That is my story I tell that I specialize in. So it could be something I specialize in helping people who want to find a new house within this neighborhood figure out how to do that as easily and seamlessly as possible. It could be I help people who live here and have a ton of equity in their homes figure out how to use that equity to invest in an investment property somewhere else. So figure out again, what's your target audience and how can you help them? And for you, Erica, you know what I was just thinking of is one that is, because she has her geofarm, your geofarm, Erica, is school district driven. A lot of those people chose that geofarm because that's a very highly rated and highly sought after school district. To say something like, you know, I help people who are ready to move into a larger home figure out how to keep the school district intact for their children and help them sell the house they have now so that the whole process is seamless and there's no question about having to possibly change schools.
Okay.
Something like that. Then if you can do it, create a tagline. So for me, for example, moving house to house, Meredith makes it easy. That's a real easy one to do. I'll have to think of one for you for schools, but anyway, have to think on that. You can also lead with a special offer. So if you're trying to break into a geofarm, coming at your audience with a special offer that can get you in the door can be really compelling. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And then, of course, becoming the local expert as well as your local resource, really doing your homework and time blocks so that you are working on some research into your geofarm so that you know, like, what was the area before it was a subdivision, if it's a subdivision, who lived there before, what were the original plans, how did they get created, you know, who was it originally sold to, what builders were originally slated to be in here, are there any plans for future development within the geofarm? All of those things make it interesting for people to talk to you. And you want to make sure you have that information if people ask you about it, because again, then you're really positioning yourself as the local expert. The other piece is, and this is one that I think a lot of people miss, know where the buyers come from. That can really help you when you get in front of a seller. If you know exactly where the buyers have come from in your farm area, sometimes you need to do a poll or walk around. If you're door knocking, ask people, curious, where were you before you lived here? Whether it was, you know, within the neighborhood, a third of ours come from right in the neighborhood. Some come from the West Coast or urban areas like DC or Bethesda, and they want to feel kind of semi-urban, but still within a suburban area. That's the kind of information you want to have, because then you know who to target market when you're selling a listing. That's really impressive to sellers. It also can create a potential expansion farm for you if an adjacent neighborhood or even a farther away neighborhood is kind of a feeder neighborhood for your farm. That would be a good place to consider investing in a secondary or expansion farm. All right, now I'm going to give you the top 3 things geofarmers are doing now. So some of you might know that I run a Facebook group called Geofarmers Mastermind. Some of you might even be part of it. If you're not, I invite you to become part of Geofarmers Mastermind. The ideas that are shared generously on that group are unbelievable. I'm always inspired by it, and I often bring them back to my team to use, like this first one we're going to talk about today. So the first one is the golden ticket. Shout out to Janine Sasso on my Geofarmers Mastermind group for bringing this to us. So Janine was coming back from a listing appointment, and we're all like, oh, where'd the listing appointment come from? We always ask, you know, what was the source? And she holds up this golden ticket. And we're like, oh my gosh, what is that? So the golden ticket is a special offer for a commission discount if redeemed by a certain date, and only good for the first 50 tickets redeemed. What I love about that is 50 listings from a golden ticket is pretty darn good. And I think she had already had 14 appointments set from that golden ticket idea. So it was something different. She mailed them, and she also took them door to door, having a chocolate bar with you. So it's kind of nostalgic and brings back the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory memories is a good way to go as well. Plus, who doesn't love a chocolate bar? Take a grassroots approach, serve the community. That's the other thing. One of the other 3 things that geofarmers are doing now is getting back out there, sleeves up, and putting some elbow grease equity into their geofarm by helping with a favorite cause, an event, being present in a way that gives back, serving on a board, a foundation, something like that that helps, or working within like the arts, cultures, or humanities in the neighborhood. The other thing is messaging at scale via social media, video, and podcasting like we're doing today. One of my favorite mastermind group members, his name is Brady Bridges, shout out to Brady, started a really locally specific podcast. And it is all about the real estate market. Well, not all about, partially about the real estate market and the area of Fort Worth, Texas. And he brings on really interesting guests. So it's a resource both for residents and listeners who are non-real estate, but it's a great resource for real estate agents as well. And he spends a good amount of time talking about what's so special about Fort Worth and giving a big call out to Fort Worth. Now, you can imagine this is really helping his SEO on his website because it's hosted on his website. And he uses that keyword, Fort Worth, or Fort Worth real estate, constantly within the podcast. So it's a really smart business idea. And even just to be able to go to sellers and say, oh, you might have listened to my podcast about Fort Worth. It's one of the ways that I get buyer attraction, to my listings. Mm-hmm. Smart strategy. Anything else you can think of people are doing now, Erica, that you've seen that I didn't mention?
No.
Oh, I just thought of one.
What?
Okay. This, I got to add this actually. I know why your house didn't sell. For expireds. So expireds have become, especially within a farm area, because you have that instant, she's the expert, he's the expert, I should have gone with that person to begin with, kind of reputation when you approach an expired in your geofarm who most likely did not list with a locally specific agent. And what they're doing is they're sticking the MLS listing on the door like it's like a violation notice or something with a piece of tape, which maybe people wouldn't like, but anyway, they're doing it. And they put a sticky note on that just says, I know why your house didn't sell. Call me. And that's it. And people are getting tons of calls from this. So they're not door knocking. They're just sticking it on the door of expireds. And then they follow it up. If the person doesn't call them back, they'll follow up with a phone call and be like, hey, did you get my notice? Are you interested to know why your house didn't sell? I know exactly why it is. And when you look, you can tell easily why a house didn't sell. There's a few basic reasons that houses don't sell typically. All right. Now let's talk about dominating your farm with systems. And systems are a big piece of what I go into in the book. I'm going to give you a very quick overview now. And my strong suggestion is you start with one of these, and it's the first one, and then layer on the others as each system starts to run. So the first one is 12-month EDDM. For those who don't know what that is, that's every door direct mail, and it's through the Postal Service, so it's at a big discounted rate. You want to make sure that you are sending to every door within your community every month. Your second system is the buyer looking system. We use an auto writer, a max writer here to do this for us. But if you have a relatively small number of farm area houses that you're hitting every month, you need to make sure that you are handwriting the addresses on those envelopes so that they get opened. So make sure if you don't have a handwriting machine, and don't try to run it through a printer and get like a handwriting font. It never looks good. Make sure that you've actually got either a handwritten or machine handwritten envelope with a buyer looking letter telling people that you have buyers looking within your farm area, and be as specific as you can. So something like reaching out because I have a buyer specifically looking for a Betsy Ross model house within the Kentlands. Third system, expired. If you have an expired system that you are not using at scale right now, and you're not going way back, I'm talking years back into expireds, start doing that. Our team is seeing results from expires from like 4, 5, 6 years ago now, who are ready to put their houses on the market and for some reason did not take advantage of this recent crazy spate of activity that we had. One thing that you can do is research expired numbers through a system like Vulcan 7. That's who we use to get those phone numbers and email addresses to you. Make sure you systematize your approach there. You should have a for sale by owner system. After that, an absentee owner system, a tenant system, a vendor referral system, and an agent referral system using a newsletter to introduce yourself to agents in other areas, reminding them that you are the local expert in this particular area. So the minute they have somebody who comes to them who's like, ooh, I was thinking Kentlands or Lakelands might be a place to go, they automatically think of you because they've got something in your inbox, in their inbox every month, reminding them that's where you specialize. Now, very quickly, we're going to go over how to expand your geofarm. So you can think about expanding once you're ready into adjacent or similar farms or types of communities. So another new urbanist community, another retirement community, another equestrian community, whatever might, again, have like alignment or resonance for what you're already doing and are going to be receptive to your message and the same kinds of branding and systems. Makes sense for you, probably, but you need to go back and complete the exercises that you completed when you chose your original farm to make sure that this possible expansion area is a viable farm for you. Then you want to find investors. So when you are expanding a farm, there is going to be another outlay of expense and time. So you want to make sure that you've got partners. It can be somebody like a title company or a lender who can help you with the marketing or the outreach. You might need to bring on an assistant to help you run these systems or get them up and running in the new farm, because you've got to go at this with the same gusto and the same consistency that you did when you began in your original farm area. You can also consider team farming. So one of the things that is very effective for many farmers is to bring on an agent who lives in the expansion farm and to teach them all of the systems and get them up and running on all the things you've done in your original farm area so that they're just plugging them in and gaining traction in that farm area. And guess what? Since they live there, they've already got a recognition factor that's coming into the farm area that you're making an effort to break into. Remember not to expand until you have already mastered and gotten some market dominance in your initial farm area. And my big takeaway on this is don't give up on it. Give yourself at least 12 months in a farm, checking all the boxes, using all the systems before you give up or decide to shift your focus to something else, because it does take that long. Like anything else, the more effort, more time you put into it, the more payoff you are likely going to have. Any questions you have for me? That was a lot, I know.
Yeah, no, I mean, you covered a lot of ground there.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Good. All right. So if you want more information or you want to dig in, connect with me on social media. Check out the book, Farming for Real Estate Agents. You can get it anywhere books are sold. It is on Audible as well. Join my Geofarmers Mastermind Facebook group and feel free to reach out with any questions about geofarming that you have.
One comment, just going back for a minute to evaluating an area and determining who the dominant agents are and that kind of thing. I know agents who have dismissed areas with the assumption that, that there are agents already covering that area. There's no way I can, make my way in there. Doing that research in your book and filling in those numbers was incredibly helpful and eye-opening. You really don't know until you do the research and look at the actual numbers, what kind of coverage and saturation that area has. So it's worth taking that time.
Absolutely. And one other little hint or tip I'll give you is there could be an agent, especially in this market, that is phasing out and has decided that they're going to exit and this is their swan song and they're going to go to wherever they're going to go to live the rest of their retirement life and not farm anymore. And if you go to them and say, I'd love to help you exit this business, and this is where a farm becomes a sellable commodity as a dominant agent, and give you a retirement income that maybe you haven't even thought about yet, how can we make this work? And you offer to either buy them out, which is less common, or you offer to give them a diminishing referral fee for each piece of business from that farm over a period of time. So that's kind of like advanced geofarming, all covered in the book as well. But don't dismiss that either. Look for those oldies but goodies, as I call them, who might still be hanging around but are really trying to get out, and you might give them the answer that they need.
Yes, and like Meredith mentioned earlier too, having that differentiator, because even if there are dominant agents, you could have something that they don't have.
Yeah.
That makes you a more desirable way to go.
Yep. Technology, videography, there's lots of things that we bring to the table these days.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, Erica. Thank you for being my audience and my question asker here. I appreciate it. We want to thank you to our podcast sponsors who make this show possible: CLA Title, Peter Yanni of Home Team Mortgage, the Rozek team with Embrace Mortgage, and Paul Harsani of Eagle Bank. Please consider reaching out to our sponsors to support those who support us and connect with us on social media. Erica, why don't you share your social media info So people
Yeah,
can
I
connect
am
with you.
I am on Facebook, Erica Day Realtor, and on TikTok, Erica Warm Smile.
Check her out on TikTok. It's pretty fun, people. All right. Thank you for listening. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We'll see you next time. We are so grateful you joined us today. If you've benefited from the advice we share on the show, we hope you'll tune in to our next episode. Interested in learning more about my personal mentoring programs, our Career Kickstart course, or to pick up a copy of my book, Farming for Real Estate Agents, your step-by-step guide for becoming the go-to agent in your local market? Visit www.meredithvogel.com and click the Resources tab. If you are curious about becoming part of the List Realty family of agents, go to the www.thelistrealty.com website and click Careers from the About Us page, or find me at the Meredith Vogel team on social media. Thank you for listening. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We'll see you next time.